again, everyone. So today we're going to be looking at the idea of change and our motivation and our readiness to get going with it. Loss of motivation can be a huge obstacle when we're trying to make healthy changes in our lives. As anybody out there who's ever tried a diet or quitting an unhealthy habit like smoking is going to tell you. Now, in health psychology, we know a lot about the cognitive and the emotional and even the social aspects involved in behaviour change. And a lot of the research around this has come from areas like drug and alcohol rehabilitation, domestic abuse, smoking cessation, and even eating disorders. So, although the health outcomes for the average person not unfortunate enough to be subject to these conditions might not be so severe or immediately life-threatening, many of the processes involved when approaching behaviour change for everyone else is quite similar. So one way we can look at behaviour change as a whole as psychologists is to adopt a functional model of how that process happens. So today we're going to take a look at a stage model of behaviour change and how that can help you to find insight and maybe motivation and along your ways in making those changes. So let's get going and look at the stages of change. Now, these are related to the Transtheoretical Model by Prochaska and DiClemente. For those of you who are interested, the references are in the description, but we're going to try and make this as accessible and easy to understand as possible. So let's have a look at the changes, the stages here. It is worth mentioning that before we get going, that the stages might not happen for you in an orderly way. You might skip one, you might go back and forth between them. We're human beings after all, and things don't usually happen nice and neatly for us, do they? As we go through the stages, we try and reflect on any behaviour change that we're trying to make for ourselves here as we go. So I'd really encourage you to get into that reflection process as we're going through the video. First in our list of things here, number one stage, we've got pre-contemplation. Now, if you're at this stage, you are not ready for change. You're not thinking about making any behaviour change whatsoever here, and you're certainly not thinking about taking actions to make that a reality. Not within the next 6 months. So how can people get stuck here? Well, it can be a lack of awareness or lack of factual information about the consequences of the behaviour in question. But it can also be that you might have tried a lot of times to change this behaviour and you've just become demoralised by that experience. Which is kind of a natural thing that happens when we feel as though we've failed in some way. So we've got some cognitive stuff and some emotional stuff that might keep people here in this place. If that's been the case for you, then it could be that the method you've been trying to change that behaviour might just not have been right for you or was not suitable for your needs in particular. It could be worth exploring what other ideas are out there rather than repeating the same old ones over and over that have not been working for you. Second on our list of things here on our cycle of change is contemplation, and it is what it sounds like. If you're at this stage that you're getting ready for change in your head within the next 6 months, you might be more aware of the benefits and risks around the behaviour in question. You could be exploring that in your mind. But we know with health behaviours here at this stage, in the course of things, we might be aware of the costs of our behaviour. But we can also recognise that there are pros here as well as cons. For example, maybe we're really aware how being technically obese places us a higher risk of pre-diabetes, of that turning into type 2. But we also like sweets, don't we? And when we eat sugary foods, we feel pleasure and we feel comfort. So this weighing up of the pros and cons can make us ambivalent about our behaviour change at this stage. And we kind of swing between wanting to change the behaviour or continuing the behaviour. Some researchers backed this up, this kind of ambivalence, with a meta-analysis of 48 health risk-related behaviours, finding that the pros and cons of change were equal here in number. So it really isn't that abnormal for a lot of us to spend a significant amount of time in this stage. So behaviourally, we might find ourselves doing a lot of umming, a lot of ahhing, and we might be procrastinating. I'll eat less sugar tomorrow. So at this stage in our example, we would certainly not be ready to enrol on a support program for people with pre-diabetes, for example, and that our doctor might be offering us. Should we do this? Maybe we might not fully commit, or maybe we even drop out. So next in our list of things, we've got the preparation stage. And when we're in this stage, we kind of moved on from that ambivalence. We perhaps put in a little plan of action in here. We might have joined a gym, for example, or we might be thinking of seeing a therapist or a counsellor. So we're kind of planning to do the things that we need to do to initiate that change at that point. We're kind of putting the tools we need in place. Our next stage, the next one here, is action. And this can be quite a complex stage in the cycle. Because we define the stages where a person has taken specific and intentional action to change their behaviour in the last 6 months. But let's remind ourselves, we are working with an empirical, scientifically based behavioural model here. It's not just an interesting idea or an abstract theory. So unlike the other stages that we've looked at, action is something we can observe and measure directly. But in the context of the Transtheoretical Model, it is of course only one of 5 stages. Within this framework, not every behaviour counts as an action. So action is defined here in a very specific way, and that is behaviour that is scientifically recognised and measurable sometimes, is reducing health-related behavioural risk or potential harm. So let's imagine we've got a smoker who's changed their behaviour. Maybe they've reduced the amount of cigarettes they're smoking a day. Now, in the context of the model here, that wouldn't count as an action because scientific evidence and consensus states that the only giving up completely, only complete cessation is likely to improve health outcomes for that person. So that behaviour wouldn't fit into this stage. It would fit into the preparation, contemplation stage of the model, or maybe even pre-contemplation in some contexts. So we have to be careful here and honest with what counts as an action. This is a very specific thing within the model. So moving on from action, we come to maintenance. And here we've got a stage where someone's made that behavioural change in their lives and they're working to stay on track and keep up all that hard work they've done. In drug and alcohol treatment, this is a stage that is directly focused on prevention of relapse into addiction. It's also a stage where cognitively we might be developing our confidence and belief in ourselves. And that can mean that we experience identity shifts. We might feel stronger and we might enjoy a better sense of self. We might also feel more able to make our behavioural change long-term or even permanent. In psychology, we call this a sense that we feel that we're developing our self-efficacy. And this is based around Bandura's 1977 theory of self-efficacy. So this is the idea of our confidence level, of whether we'll succeed at a given task. So I'm thinking of making another video around that, but I wanted to explain what self-efficacy is here. So according to studies that measure the self-efficacy in the maintenance stage, it's been shown that this can last anywhere between 6 months and 5 years. So just like pre-contemplation, this is a stage that people might spend quite a significant amount of time in. Now, should we slip out of maintenance and resume the old behaviour, we'd move back into one of the other stages before eventually arriving back in maintenance, and that is okay. We are all human beings, and none of us signed a contract when we came into this world and said we would be perfect, and we'd never mess up. So as always, we've got to remember to approach our behaviour change with self-compassion and learn not to be so hard on punishing on ourselves for simply being human. So there we have it, the stages of change cycle as part of the Transtheoretical Model of Change by Prochaska and DiClemente, translated into plain English for you to help you to find the insight and hopefully the success in whatever behaviour changes you're hoping to incorporate into your life. Now let me know how you get along with it, and please share your opinions or your questions in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and share and subscribe so you don't miss a thing. And thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time.